Welcome to Season 9 of the Stressed But Well-Dressed podcast. I'm your host, Dahlia Stroud. In each episode of the show, we interview a new guest to get their perspective on clothes and confidence, bringing you insights on what it means to be well-dressed and encouraging you to think about how you get the most out of your clothes, build your confidence, and what a well-dressed mindset means to you. Welcome to Stressed But Well-Dressed. Hi, I'm Dahlia and you're listening to Stressed But Well-Dressed, and today I'm joined by Sophie Neary, Managing Director of Retail at Google. Hi Sophie.
Hi Dahlia.
Well, it is a super hot day here in Leeds, and I'm guessing in London as well. We are both dressed in shirts and a big necklace, so we obviously share a love for chunky jewellery, but I'm going to ask you what your most memorable fashion moment is.
Well, I'm just going to come up with the first thing that came into my head, which was actually yesterday. And yesterday I had the meeting with the CEO of one of the largest retailers in the UK. And I had a beige linen jacket on that's from Reiss, that's really nice. Had a white linen top on. I had some sort of smart jeans. I often wear jeans and a blazer for work, and some nice trainers. And I went to the loo before pink is my favorite color. Sorry, I should caveat with all this. Pink is my favorite color. And I went to the loo and came out of the loo, and my belt was being really funny, and I was also in a rush. I was going to be late for the meeting, so I was rushing across, and I walked through the entrance to our Google offices, where everyone sort of hangs out, and it's a real like co-working space, and there's loads of people having meetings. And I was like, oh God, my jacket doesn't feel quite right. And I realized that in my haste to get to my meeting on time, I had not only managed to tuck the back of my jacket into my jeans, but also into my bright pink knickers. So I was walking across, we call it the launch pad. I walked across the launch pad with my bright pink leopard skin pants on show to everyone.
No, but I think if you're wearing bright pink leopard skin knickers, then they kind of need to be on show to everyone. They are not for hiding.
I know. But the funny thing is that no one told me. And you see, I am definitely the sort of woman that if I saw that happen to another woman, it would be the first thing that I tell her. And I think sometimes that's the interesting thing about being the boss, right? That people don't want to tell you.
Yeah, do you know what? You would always rather someone tells you like you've just got a bit of spinach in your teeth or whatever it is, rather than let you live the day with it.
Always, yeah. So anyway, I ended up looking beige and smart for my meeting, and no pink pants on show.
So, well, I do have a question about your outfit, which I will ask you later, but I will ask you, Sophie, to introduce yourself properly first. So I've mentioned that you are an MD at Google, but tell me a bit around your career and what you've done and what you now do.
Yeah. So I have always worked in online. So I started my career at Reuters in 1994. And in 1995, I was put in this project called The Internet, capital T, capital I. I wanted to work on the news. I phoned up my parents and said, I've got a job on this thing called the internet. And my dad was like, oh, Sophie, what's the internet? I was like, I don't really know. I wanted to work on the news. But there was such a good lifelong lesson that sometimes not getting what you want is a wonderful stroke of luck. Because, of course, nobody knew then what was going to happen to the internet. A bit like now, we know AI is going to change everything, but we don't know all the ways that it's going to change everything in. So yes, I started out in financial services really, and then I moved into retail in the early 2000s. I've been in retail ever since then. I've always done retail transformation, replatforming huge e-commerce websites, also running the P&L for those websites, just running the shop, all the technology behind it, running teams of everything from merchandisers to performance marketeers. It's been an absolute joy. I feel incredibly privileged, not without challenges or difficulties for sure. But I do feel very, very blessed to have had the career that I've had, and I've worked very hard for it, and I've earned everything that I've got for sure. And so my last job in retail was I was on the board of Boots. So I ran all of Boots.com. I ran the reinvention of Boots.com. I ran all of their omni-channel strategy, so all of their click and collect in stores. And I also ran Boots.com for the first 8 or 9 months of the pandemic. So that was a huge responsibility when your job really becomes a whole new meaning, right? Because we were keeping the nation stocked with hand sanitizers and face masks, and we all remember there was a huge amount of anxiety around the availability of those products at the beginning of the pandemic and things. And then I took a step over to the dark side of big tech, in part because I I'd loved my job at Boots so much, and I was a little bit scratching my head going, well, where do I go from here? I've just had the best job in retail I could ever imagine having. I can't really think what I'm going to go and do next. So I went to Facebook for a few years, and then Google came calling, and I've been a client of Google since 2006. I've had many a Black Friday high and low. A lot of my career success I owe to having a great partnership with Google. And so I sort of feel like my career has come full circle. So I run a team of amazing people, and our job is to help both retail and FMCG companies grow their businesses using Google. So it's an amazing position to have, because I get to see not only just UK retail from an umbrella point of view, but 1 billion people shop with Google every day. So I get to see how the whole world does retail, and I'm responsible not just for UK retailers, but for I run Nike for Europe. We run Gucci for the world. So I get an extraordinary position and experience, really, to be able to see whether you're Tesco or whether you're Gucci or everyone in between, what life is like.
And I know you are quite vocal as well about what people are searching for at different times. So I'm interested to know what people are searching for right now.
Well, it's really hot. So when the searches really change once the weather hits about 23 degrees or more. So unsurprisingly, it's sausages and beer and barbecue weather. Obviously, it's Wimbledon right now. It's Wimbledon when we're filming this. So strawberries and cream is huge. And we've just had Glastonbury. And one of the biggest searches for Glastonbury was how to fold a festival tent.
Oh, interesting.
Not what to wear. Not what to wear, but how do I fold my tent up?
How do I take my tent home? Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. So, Sophie, obviously this podcast is about the link between clothes and confidence, and what it means to be well dressed, and what that means for the guest in terms of their perspective. You explained and kind of gave so much amazing detail about your career, and you were very clear. I have earned this. So there was kind of a level of confidence that, you know what, I've worked hard, and this career isn't all by chance. I mean, the internet might have been at the beginning, but you know, you've put the work in. Talk to me about how that level of confidence kind of comes to you, and what it means to recognize your achievements in that way.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've asked me this question. I think I was extremely fortunate. So I'm originally from Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. My dad had 2 girls. I'm pretty sure he really wanted 2 boys, but he had 2 girls. And he was a retailer as well. He was a jeweler. He had 1 shop, and he worked really, really hard. And he used to say to me, you can do anything you want to, Sophie, anything at all, as long as you accept that it's harder for girls. You'll have to work twice as hard as the boys. You'll have to be twice as good to be seen as the same, but don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't do something. And for the gruff rugby playing Yorkshireman that he was, he actually identified obviously both the sort of stereotypical gender bias that has been known about for a really long time, right? But also this concept of competency bias, that men are assumed to be competent, whereas women have to prove it. And I have definitely found that true throughout all of my career. But I think what that amazing gift that my dad gave me, which, neither of us knew at the time, right? And he certainly didn't know, was what it meant was when things did get tough, or when I did have to work harder or be better to be seen as the same, instead of going, oh, it's not fair, or giving up, I was like, oh, well, this is what Dad said my life would be like. He said it was going to be harder, so just kind of suck it up and roll with it. And so it's sort of, and this his mantra of you can do anything that you want to was a really amazing thing for a young girl born in the 70s to hear. And anyone listening to this who is a dad or who has a daughter, I really hope that you can take comfort in that, and also be I think clear is kind. We have to be honest and say that life is still harder for women. We're all trying to fix that. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue your dreams and your goals. And it still doesn't mean that you aren't capable of incredible things. And too often our own confidence or imposter syndrome can unintentionally hold us back. And everything that we can do so that we don't have those self-made barriers or the barriers and limitations that are society puts on us, it can be very liberating.
So And I love that story of your dad. And I know that you believe confidence is contagious. So I'm guessing the person that you originally caught it from was your dad. But I think, it's such a headstrong attitude, isn't it? I know
Yeah.
this is going to be tough, but, by God, I'm going to do it anyway. Has like, what are the moments that challenge you on that, where you think, God, this doesn't feel balanced, or actually this is tougher than I expected, or am I willing to keep going when I don't necessarily think things are fair or equitable or how they should be?
Yeah. All the time. I mean, I think the thing that I've spoken about before was when I was made redundant from Jack Wills. So I was on the board of Jack Wills. It was my first ever board level role. So it was very exciting for me. And again, I really felt I'd earned my seat at that table. I actually started the company as an interim, and then they kept me on and they put me on the board. So that was a real, recognition of what I had
Yeah.
delivered for the organization. And as is often the way, they then got taken over by a private equity firm, and the private equity firm wanted their own person in, so they got rid of me. But it was done in a really, I felt, hurtful way. Like, in business is tough. It's not personal, it's business. I totally get that. But I learned a good lesson there about also how to make people redundant when you're on the other side of the table, and to always say thank you, and to always be gracious. And I felt like I was marched out of there like someone who'd stolen from the company. It was a really awful experience. And so that was really, really hard. And I ended up taking a year off, in part because I had quite a long gardening leave, but also because I'd just fallen out of love with work. I felt so disillusioned. I felt so disenchanted. I felt, I've just worked so hard for you. And this was a good lesson, right? Did they make me work that hard, or did I put that upon myself? And yeah, and I was really heartbroken. I felt like I'd been dumped by someone I really loved, and not getting to see my team again. Although obviously you do get to keep in touch with people you want to. But I used to love going to that office and seeing my team every day. I mean, we were a wonderful group of people who I was very fond of. So I think that was a really good lesson. That I think there's two things that can happen to us in life. Like, first of all, no one comes through life unscathed. All of us are going to have really, really hard challenges, both personally as well as professionally. And that is just all part of the rich tapestry and the roller coaster of life. And this was, one of mine that I wouldn't have chosen. But actually, ultimately, I had that gap year. I then got a job at Boots, again as an interim, and ended up on the board of Boots, running the largest health, beauty and wellbeing shop in the UK online. And what an extraordinary experience that was. So my learnings from it are definitely, it's okay to be sad about things that are sad. It really annoys me when I read stuff online and go, happiness is an inside job. It is, but that doesn't mean that things can't be really, really difficult and really hard. Life is not a walking Instagram feed. So I think it's important to recognize that there are times that we are all going to find incredibly difficult. And it's probably going to be the personal things that are even harder than the professional things. But so it's important to take the time to process those, and to, I've often had a career coach and found those people really helpful, because you can sort of talk to career coaches in a way you wouldn't talk to a friend, etc., etc. And at some point, you normally have to give yourself a little talking to go, okay, I've had my bit of being really sad and upset about this. So if you hold on to the anger too much, it just eats away at you, and it's pointless, and you're the only person that gets hurt. They don't care. They've already moved on. It doesn't matter if it's an ex-partner or an ex-company. In a company, you're literally a number on a spreadsheet. I don't care who you work for, where you are. I love my job at Google. I'm still just a number on a spreadsheet. And in life, people make different changes and people go in different directions. And so ultimately, if you end up spending too much time going over and over again, all you're doing is replaying that movie in your head and putting yourself back through that pain. So I think I've done a good job of understanding how to do the work, to go through the disappointment, to work through the disappointment, the upset, and then to go, okay, I'm not going to let this setback set me back. I'm going to make it set me up for even better.
And do you know what, Sophie? I could have probably written a very similar redundant story to you. And I think, God, there is so much in civility, isn't there? And
Yeah.
in treating people like
kindness.
humans with grace. Yeah, kindness. The thing that I learnt on the journey, and what I'm interested to hear from you is it takes a long time to get from stressed to a well-dressed mindset post something like that. You said you
Yeah.
took a year out where you did different things. How did you free yourself from that mindset and kind of bring yourself to a positive one where you were ready to step into what was a new and fantastic role at Boots?
Yeah. So I mean, I hadn't had a break for maybe 23, 24 years. It was about 10 years ago when this happened. And I was really tired, and I knew that I needed to recharge. And I'd never been married. I don't have children. So that gave me the opportunity to be able to go traveling. So I just did some things that had always been on my bucket list. And I'm a real advocate now of taking a significant amount of time out. Now, obviously, because I didn't have financial responsibilities and a family to take care of, I had the freedom to be able to do that. I also want to acknowledge that that's not going to be something that's an option for everyone. But having that year out, even if it's something that you do to education or learn a new skill, it was so actually good for my brain, and not just for the sort of control alt delete reset on my career, because actually I came back from that gap year smarter, cleverer, because my brain had had a proper rest. I was learning to kite surf, I was trekking in Nepal, I was doing really different things, and my brain, I don't know if it regrew or if it just wasn't so sort of fried the whole time, but I definitely came back, and I was really importantly not just clear about what I did want to do next, but more importantly than that, what I did not want to do. And knowing what to say no to is sometimes a lot more helpful than knowing what to say yes to, because sometimes a great opportunity that we haven't even thought about might come along. And if you've been really super prescriptive about what you want to say yes to, you might unintentionally turn that down. So what I learned from that is be really, really clear on what I want to say no to, because that's really how the Boots thing came along. Again, it just sort of came out of nowhere. I don't even think I would have thought that I would have been able to apply for that job, if I'm really honest. So maybe I would have self-sabotaged and not even applied for it. But I got this phone call and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And it was an interim, and that suited me perfectly, because that's exactly what I'd done at Jack Wills. And also I knew what I was doing. So I wasn't worried, although, you know, the Boots role compared to the Jack Wills role, obviously about 10 times as big. But the principles of running a shop, whether you're running a shop that sells £100 a week or 100 million a week, is fundamentally exactly the same, just the zeros that are different. So I knew that I would be able to do the job, and I was interested in beauty and pharmacy. But yeah, the reason that I went for it was because I knew what I didn't want to do.
Yeah, and I think that idea of, I like knowing what's in scope and knowing what's out of scope as well. You know, the things that
Yeah.
I'm confident to say no to. Did you feel when you went to Boots and you're stepping back into the corporate world? Well, first of all, I actually, just taking that a step back, I think, you know, I'm not a scientist, but I think our brains rewire all the time.
Yeah.
So that idea of stepping out, actually learning to do different skills which you hadn't before, is an opportunity, you're right, to rewire your brain and to kind of
Yeah.
reframe and reset. But when you went back into the corporate world, do you find yourself wanting to seek out a validation to kind of compound the fact that, do you know what, I do deserve my place here? Or did it feel different second time round?
I think it felt slightly different, because I was able to go in and make an impact immediately. So
Yeah.
that affirmation sort of came about just by the fact that I was doing a good job. I mean, so I think that's probably where that came from. But also I was ready to go back to work by then. Then I was hungry to start working again and to learn new things and to meet new people. So the sort of timing worked out really well as well.
And tell me about, did you feel you came back a different Sophie, a new Sophie, or did you just kind of revert to type, and what happened there?
Yeah, I definitely felt wiser, more reflective. I felt cleverer. I think because my brain had like that whole kind of, you know, brushed out
Yeah.
all this clutter that was sticking it up. And I wish I could say that I'm the sort of person that meditates every day, but I have to believe it must be really, really good for you. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why, because it probably helps just hoover out all the sort of noise in your brain every day. Mental note, I must start doing that again. And hang on, I've forgotten the question. Sorry.
Well, what was interested to know is, we learn and we grow all the time, and whether I think there's definitely something, and I'll talk about this in a minute. Of, when you step away, there's the matches, aren't there? That if you think about that visual that gets shared, where there's lots of matches and they're all burning, and then a match has to step away for the fire
Yes.
to stop, and there's rest,
Yeah.
and then there's reset, and you had that breather, and then you came back. And I wanted to know, did you kind of jump in as you did before, or did you think, do you know what, I'm different now? You said I'm cleverer, I'm a different Sophie, but how did that kind of manifest itself in the way that you did the work?
Yeah, sorry, menopause brain. Sometimes I forget my own thoughts, but maybe I should meditate more and hoover my brain every morning. I not really, but I think that's because the work had been done in my gap year.
Yeah. And tell me then about, so the thing that I'm interested in is you talk about confidence being contagious.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact you caught it from your dad. Who else is there that stood out for you, that you've looked at them and actually they've really inspired you, and you think, do you know what, those are shoes that I want to follow, those are footsteps that I want to walk in?
Yes, I was very lucky with my first ever manager. It was an amazing lady called Frances Tipper, and I mean, I looked up to her so much. I was 23. She was probably only 31. But, I just thought she was a real grown up and a really old, not in terms of, ancient, but, an old, wise person. And so she was my first manager at Reuters. And she was just wonderful because, again, when she was in meetings, if she had an opinion to share, she was incredibly clever and very good at her job. But if she had an opinion to share, or she disagreed with something, she would always socialize it and bring that up. And I just remember thinking, gosh, isn't it amazing? And people really listen to her and they really respect her. And she gave me that confidence, I think, also you don't have to be the mouse in the corner.
Yeah.
And you can be someone who does participate. So that was really great. I got to work in the US twice, which I also think was quite helpful. In the US, I think one of the things that's different is over here, people can, when someone's successful, they can try and chip you down and take you down. It's almost like we're envious or jealous. It's one of the things I hate the most about Britain, is that we get real sourpuss about people who do really well. Whereas in America, if someone does really well, they're like, oh my God, look at Sophie, look at her go, isn't that amazing? So I had about 5 years of that. Again, a bit like later on in my life, instead of my dad being a cheerleader, other people going, "You're going to crush this. You're doing great."
Yeah.
And so I think that was really helpful. And yeah, I just think there's something in also surrounding yourself with positive people. I mean, you want people who are going to be truthful. You don't want people who aren't going to tell you the truth. Yeah. Clear as kind. But I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm sure I've read somewhere that you become the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with.
I've read a lot about that as well. Yes. 5 most dialed on your phone or something like that. Yeah. 5 minutes.
Yeah. And so, which is great, obviously, because hopefully that's, a mom or a dad or a sister or a brother or a partner or a best friend or whatever. And also, if you surround yourself, I think particularly at work, with people who are always moaning and always going, oh, isn't it rubbish? This is awful. And I don't like this about it. And I don't like that about it. Just know that that's who you are becoming as well. And also know that that's how you're being seen by the rest of the organization. And that if someone's gossiping to you about something or sharing something with you, that means they're also gossiping about you and sharing something about you to someone else as well. Yeah. So I think it's being really, I mean, it doesn't mean obviously ditching your best friend overnight and saying, you're not who I want to be, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. I mean, clearly that would be an awful thing to do. But I do think it's worth being mindful of that. I always used to think in a similar vein, dress for the job you want, not the job you've got.
Yeah. And kind of that aspiration piece. So before we talk about dress, and I definitely want to ask you about dress, how do you pay forwards confidence? Like when you're leading a team, how do you create that feeling of confidence for everyone in the team and make them all feel like they can do anything?
Yeah. So I usually have a couple of mantras that I encourage everyone to lean into. And it's actually all about having the confidence and the courage to share where we could do things better. So I sort of have two things. We want to raise the floor and raise the ceiling, because if we just keep focusing on what we're really, really good at, then the stuff that we're not as good at eventually will become an anchor and really, really drag us down. Whereas what we want to do is go like this and keep a rising tide floats all boats. You're always going to be better at some things than others. That's totally fine and normal. But you sort of want to improve both of them rather than end up like this. So raise the ceiling, raise the floor, and we win or we learn, right? So you're not making a mistake. Everybody screws up. Every day is a new chance to start again. The key thing in being a high performing team versus an average performing team is every day when you have a new chance to start again, what are you learning from yesterday that you're doing different? And it doesn't mean the huge things, because success is often made up of 1,000 tiny little steps. What it really means is, what are those 2 or 3 tiny little things that you're going to do differently today or tomorrow or the next time you have this meeting with the CEO, or whatever it, check that your jacket isn't touching your knickers, whatever it might be, right? What are you going to do differently next time? And so Google, what I ask my team to do is, we have this huge, very energetic group. We're a team that sits in London and in Dublin and in India, and we share what goes on in the meetings that we have, and we go, this is what went well. And we used to only just talk about this is what went well, and it was all about we're amazing, we're great, and Google's incredible, and it does do things very well. But we were never sharing what we could do differently next time. We were never sharing the learnings, which means we were never going to grow. And so I implemented a sort of rule that every time someone did a share, you had to do a hashtag WWIDD. What would I do differently next time? And at first, it was really hard for the team to do that because they weren't used to it. It's like building this new muscle. But also, I role modeled it as well. So every time I had a client meeting, I was like, this is where it went well, and these are my WWIDDs. I really stuffed up my answer to this question, or I didn't know that fact, even though I read about it the day before. And so I'm very, very open and honest. I do believe only the strong can be vulnerable. And then over time, the team got really, really comfortable and confident in sharing their WWIDDs. And what that then means is, you're not having 189 people learn one lesson 189 times. You're having one person out of 189 people learn it once. Yeah. And then everyone else gets the chance to let. So you're all developing, and you're all growing. And some of the shares now are really really amazing, and I learned something from each of them as well, which is just brilliant.
And you said, gosh, only the strong can be vulnerable. Just talk to me a little bit more about what you think that means.
Yeah, well, again, I think when I started my career in the 90s, I mean, like Frances, right? I put her on a pedestal. She was phenomenal, and is phenomenal to me, and incredible. And I just thought that she was absolutely perfect. And of course, no one is ever perfect. But in the 90s, leadership was all very command and control. Like, I want this doing. This is how I want it doing. I'm right. If you're more junior than me, you're going to be wrong. You're never going to challenge me. And that was management in those days. And then, for all the right reasons, we had a big shift, and it was understood actually that let's say you're marketing a product to someone who's younger, a bit like at Jack Wills, then it makes a lot of sense to listen to the younger people in your team who are living through that experience of being 22 years old, and would they pay £65 for a hoodie or not, sort of thing. So I think that's really, really great how that has evolved. But what that means, I think, then, to be a good leader is you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to change your mind. You have to be willing to signpost that you'll change your mind. And again, in sharing, this is where I could do better next time, you're role modeling the behaviors you want everyone else to role model. And you're rewarding the behaviors that you want to see. And it's the behaviors that drive the impact and the success, not necessarily just the tasks. It's not always the what, but it's the how. Yeah. So I really try to, and again, I don't get everything right. I'm only human. I screw up all the time. But back to the how. How am I role modeling how I know and believe, and in my experience, high performing teams can grow and support each other and evolve. And I sort of think my job as a manager is to help that individual become the best person of themselves that they can be, not to be a carbon copy of me. And again, in the 90s, I think it was like, well, to get ahead, you have to look like me, you have to sound like me, and you have to do exactly what I would do.
So on that note then, and I love that, I'm going to take that forward, that only the strong can be vulnerable. Tell me then, what did you look like in the 90s? What did you wear? How did you show up to work? And how has your style evolved to now?
Yeah, so I have such a fun, honestly, this is the best podcast for me. I have such a fun story around that. So when I was interviewing, I don't know if they still call it the milk round, but for some reason it was called the milk round when I came out of university. You applied to, Unilever, or I did. I applied to Unilever and P&G and Reuters and God, maybe like 30 or 40 companies, and you go for these interviews. And I was working in my dad's shop to earn money, and I walked past Next one day, and it had this lovely pink suit in the sale in the window. It was £19, which in those days was a lot of money. And I have been wearing my mum's Marks and Spencer blazer and pleated skirt. So fashion in the 90s was very dowdy, to all of my interviews, and I hated it. Like, I really, really hated it. And also, everyone else was also turning up in their mum's Marks and Spencer blazer and pleated skirts, because that's what our mums wore in those. And my mum worked, so I had a great role model in my mum. And so with my £19, I think I paid for it with three £5 notes. And, well, yes, it was like 1992, sort of 4 £1 coins.
There were no £2 coins then, no £2 coins.
I remember counting it out on the counter and thinking, it was a bit Lady Di, and thinking, oh my God, this suit is amazing. And I had an interview with a big FMCG company, and it was one of those 2-day interviews where they say, okay, stand up for 4 minutes and talk about how to boil an egg, and they put you through all these ridiculous things that I still to this day have no idea how they indicate whether you'll be good at your job or not, but you had to do them. And they gave you a piece of paper and 15 straws and say, make something out of this. And so leadership things, individual things, and a presentation. And I felt really good in my pink suit, and I crushed it. I mean, I just know I absolutely crushed it. And on the last afternoon before it was time to go home, they brought you in. And actually what was really kind was they told you there and then whether or not they were going to offer you a job, which I thought was great. And I sat down, and there was 4 of them, 1 woman, 3 men, and they were all smiling at me and said, Sophie, you were exceptional, and you were by far the best candidate in this cohort that we had. And obviously I was very polite, and I said, oh, thank you very much. But actually deep down inside, I knew I'd really, really nailed it.
Yeah.
And then one of the blokes leant forward and went, but we'd never hire anyone who wears a pink suit. And I remember looking at him, and I went bright pink, and I mean, I wanted to cry. And
I want to cry for you now. I want to cry for you in this moment.
Yeah. And I was both, and I'm cross because I felt ashamed, and I'm really cross I let him make me feel ashamed, but I was also slightly outraged and just unbelievably disappointed. Anyway, I'm very proud of myself because I stood up and I said, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I shook their hands, and I didn't start to cry until I got outside. And then I didn't wear a pink suit again for an interview. I went back to wearing my mum's blue blazer. But when I got my job at Reuters, I wore that pink suit every Friday for about 5 years. And that became my thing. Sophie loves pink. And so pink is like a real theme in my life because it's the ultimate pretty woman moment, right? When she goes into the shop with all her shopping bag and goes, big mistake, huge. I'd so like to go back to that panel and go, Managing Director, Retail and Consumer Goods at Google.
But I kind of think if that hadn't happened, you would have never been introduced to the internet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything happens for a reason, right? Is this or something better? Sometimes not getting what you want is a wonderful stroke of luck. So and so from then, I mean, I've always liked pink as a colour, but then it really became my identity. And the brilliant thing about Jack Wills was that the Jack Wills kind of corporate colours were navy blue and pink. So I was totally in my element. I'm not wearing any pink today. I've got pink pants on. So I am. So and then of course when I was at Boots, we were selling beauty, and I had pink hair, and still quite often have pink hair because now no one can ever tell me how I need to dress and what I need to look like, because it just doesn't matter. So yes, it really became who I am.
So tell me then, you talked about what you wore yesterday, which was the linen blazer and the jeans.
I always write with a pink biro. That's like part of my thing.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna send you a blue and pink Stressed but Well Dressed water bottle. So you talked about your outfit yesterday, which was the blazer, the jeans and the tee, which is obviously a very classic look, and it's, for me, it's a look of confidence. It's one that, you know, I've got this, I know what I'm doing. Did you feel kind of your style evolved as you went, presumably? And you've talked about like working at different brands and trying out different things. What does well dressed mean to you now?
I think it's someone who dresses to make themselves feel good and not for other people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do sort of have a uniform at work. So Google's very dressed down and very casual, but obviously I have a lot of meetings with CEOs, and not that many CEOs wear suits anymore, but not that many of them wear jeans and a t-shirt either. So my sort of work uniform this is here in my cupboard here. I've got about 20 different blazers, and I sort of rotate them, and I either wear a shirt or a t-shirt underneath them. And I always have a really funky pair of trainers, again, because my feet hurt in high heels. I've got zero interest in wearing things that make my feet hurt. But Gucci like me a lot because I've got a lot of Gucci trainers.
Nice. So I guess what would be the reflection then on kind of, was there one moment where you kind of eased into yourself in terms of confidence, and what would be on the back of that your message to anyone listening to this thinking, wow, like Sophie clearly knows what she's talking about. You can hear the confidence in how you speak, and it's a self-assured, but it's because you know what you can deliver, and I think that's really admirable. How do you encourage people to get to that place?
I think from a management point of view, or being a mentor, I'm a real believer in clear is kind. So back to this raise the floor, raise the ceiling. You want to celebrate the amazing things that they're good at, and then you want to tell them where they can evolve so that they too can grow into becoming the best version of themselves that they can possibly be, accepting that it's not binary. You'll never get everything. I always think if you're nailing it about 70% of the time, that's really, really good, because you're never going to nail it 100% of the time. So getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, learning the way on the way, accepting that, you know, failure and mistakes are all part and parcel, but not letting them define you, but doing the work so that they end up being a lesson and help teach you. I mean, probably, well, one of the defining moments for me definitely was on a Black Friday, probably the first Black Friday at Boots. I've been there since February, and at the time at Boots you had to wear a suit to work, which I really objected to, because my team they were sitting on computers uploading perfume and beauty products onto a website. They were never going to see a client. They didn't need to wear a suit. And so I sort of broke that rule for them. And then on Black Friday, we had glitter stations and lots of fun things going on, because the team were coming in at midnight and working sort of non-stop 24 hours. It was a really, really intense time, and I wanted everyone to feel that they were enjoying it. And I just remember standing, it's a massive open plan office. I remember standing at the front with all of my team, and I think maybe we had glow sticks. We had loads of helium balloons, which turned out to be a problem, because if one got let go, the smoke detector system at Boots is motion, and there was this massive panic that I was going to shut down the entire head office on Black Friday because we had all these helium balloons. But and I remember looking out, and there were people there who'd all, I had pink hair, who had multicolored hair, who had, you know, even the men had glitter on their faces, and everyone was just really, it was a really joyous moment. And someone said to me, you have really shown us what it takes to celebrate a team in a way that you didn't have to spend loads of money, or, you know, go down the pub or do a really expensive day out, but just to be able to have joy in the moment. And I mean, I still look back on that moment and I feel really warm inside.
Well, do you know what? it's clearly contagious, because I am loving that moment as well and loving this conversation. I could talk to you for so much longer, but we do need to close it down at some point. So I'm going to ask you, Sophie, to finish. Are you stressed or well dressed?
Today, well, I'm a bit stressed because I had terrible food poisoning last night, so I'm feeling a little bit tired. But I think I'm okay dressed. It's very hot. I've got a linen shirt on, and I'd like to think I'm always well dressed.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
I hope this got you thinking about what well dressed means for you. If you enjoyed the show, jump onto the platform and give us a review. Thanks for listening to Stressed But Well Dressed. I'm your host, Dahlia Stroud. Have a great day. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I love your outfit.